So I hope all is well with you. That's awesome. Oh, and to everybody else, I think now we're on the main streams. Let's throw on the Chinese spyware TikTok on a burner phone. And to everybody, good morning. And an amazing morning to all of you. Welcome to the Freedom Coffee Livestream, where we celebrate the freedoms that we have and that we've fought for. And we find that positive space where we can strategize on how to expand those freedoms in the future. And we are going to need to do that, especially if you're in the United Kingdom, which it's been described to me lately as mid-century Germany in English. So I hope everybody in the UK is all right. Anybody know what ghost clicking is? It's got to be the most infuriating thing that you've ever dealt with. It's when you have an iPhone, and then all of a sudden, it's almost like there's a three-letter agency that has logged into your phone and decided to click on a bunch of stuff. That is something I discovered this week, and it's really frustrating. I'm going to get into that in a couple of minutes, but just a few things to tie up. Firstly, tomorrow is another episode of Not on Record with Joseph Newberger and Diana Davison. Those of you who know the MRA space, the men's rights activist space, she joined Joseph's firm several years ago as a legal researcher, and they focus on false accusations and criminal defenses and those sorts of cases. So we are now into 100 and I don't remember how many. We're close to 140 episodes since we launched. So that is going to be tomorrow night. I'm also back at editing some podcasts. So one of them, which I don't know if I've spoken about it on this platform yet, is Open College with Professor Stephen Hicks. So for those of you who don't know, we've been trying to work on season 2 and get it released for about a year. But there's so many other things in the works. But so just to give you a little bit of background, for those of you who don't know, I think most people do know, Jordan Peterson, when he made his kind of ascension to international fame, he was given a speech, I believe it was in Canada, and this was, I guess, one of his first public speeches, like after that whole scenario happened at U of T, and he held up a book, not this book, this was a good book as well, he held up a book. Oh, no, he didn't hold up the book. I'm holding up the book, by the way, honkingforfreedom.com. Jordan told everybody that they need to read a book called Explaining Postmodernism by Professor Stephen Hicks. And Stephen Hicks really is kind of the person who's in modern day put all this postmodernist theory together. And his argument was the reason you needed to read that book is because that's the ideological framework or philosophy of the collectivists that have run roughshod over the West, have been taking over many of our institutions, and this is where you get the oppressor versus oppressed dynamic, is through postmodernism. So Stephen is one of my podcasters. We started together a podcast called Open College with Stephen Hicks. You can find it on YouTube, Spotify, any sort of podcast that you want. And episode number 1, which is a salient episode, it is titled Free Speech, Why the Philosophy Matters, and it's the philosophical argument behind it. So I'm heavy into the editing right now, and we're going to be getting it out sometime in September, which will be episode 56, if I believe. Yeah, episode 56. And I'll let you in on the date when that's being released sometime soon. So before we get into the other stuff, I want to talk about something technologically related to what I just brought up, which is the location-based tracking on your phone. Do you have an iPhone by chance, one of these? So I had this ghost clicking issue, and it was infuriating. So spent a lot of time thinking, wait, is there a three-letter agency in my phone? No, that's not what it is. Well, not that I know of. There was a number of YouTube videos online and articles written about it. And basically, it took me 3 or 4 days to, I think, fix it for the most part. I think I fixed it. But it required a lot of updates. I had a few apps that still needed to be updated. And there were a bunch of different things you could try. I think there's 8 or 9 different things you can do. And one of them is, which seemed to work, which was reset all phone settings, which I didn't even know what that was, but I mean, should be obvious, but you never really know till you do it. So I clicked on that, and that seemed to fix everything for about a day. But what happened was when I reset all the phone settings, it's really kind of wild. You start to really, I encourage you to do this if you have an iPhone and you got time that you want to kill and learn how it all works. I clicked reset all phone settings. And since then, this was about 2 days ago now, I have had I have lots of apps. My phone works as a computer along with this computer. I have had so many alert messages popping up saying, can you allow this this app to track your location, just random apps? But then it also says, can the app that you're using track your usage of other apps for advertising? And it just dawned on me how intrusive this is. I mean, we all know their phones track. We know that. We've kind of accepted that to a degree in the modern world. But wow, to see those messages pop up regularly on the phone. Oh, and the fact that it wants to use applications to track your usage on other applications. It's just a little bit crazy. So anyways, and that's kind of that push or pull, convenience versus tracking that we're all struggling with right now. But yeah, just never realized how serious it is. If you want to test it out, go to reset all phone settings. You won't lose your data. All your data stays there. All your apps stay there. Whatever. It's just all the configuration permissions and privacy stuff and whatever. It's really kind of crazy. All right, it's been a while since we've been here and we've touched on this topic. Good morning, Jesse. It's good to see you. I hope Rocky is there. You would be much happier with a life without a phone. No. No. I am a systemization type person, or at least I've learned to be a systemization type person. The phone is an extension of my brain. I use my brain for creativity and I use the phone for storage. That's just kind of the methodology that I organize. I would just be, for that day or so that I could only talk to the phone, that I couldn't input with text. I realized how dependent I am, not so much on the phone, but the infrastructure, phone, iPad, computer, that I'm dependent on infrastructure for storage of data and to access it regularly. But anyway, I guess I could do the same with pen and paper, but it is what it is. So we've talked about this, Jesse. You've heard us talk about this before many times. I've asked this question. I've posed this question out several times, and that is, who are the least credible people in society? You want to throw out any suggestions? And this is some review, and it's important review because it's related to what's going on in the world right now. Those three are, and Jesse's going to pop up on the screen in a couple of minutes, as is Beth, I'm sure. Beth, yeah, you got any suggestions who are the least credible people in society? Well, if you said politicians, the media, and lawyers, which I always say with an asterisk, you might be correct. And if you want to take the lack of credibility and you want to, multiply it by an exponent, you get somebody who's in two of those categories, sometimes all three categories. There are people who are politicians, who are in media, and who have legal backgrounds, right? That's like Super Saiyan dishonest person. Those are the people that are often rolled out on platforms as the designated liars, right? They're trained liars. You can also sometimes put PR people in there. I mean, public relations is just the art of learning how to lie to you, it's funny that the legacy media or the fake news media so many of the presenters that you see online on legacy media platforms, they don't have journalism backgrounds. I wonder how many people know that. Did you know that? Did you know when you turn on like CNN, like most of those people don't have journalism backgrounds? What do they have? They have public relations backgrounds. And public relations is a word that comes from Edward Bernays because the word propaganda was already co-opted by the mid-century Germans. So he had to come out with a positive way to spin the word propaganda, and he settled on public relations. You mean Ezra? Oh yeah, that's funny. Ezra Levant. He is a politician. He is a lawyer, and he is I don't know if I call him media, but aspiring media. Yeah. There's a good example of a designated liar or a gun for hire, hired gun. Anyways, that's going to be important. We'll talk a little bit about that moving forward in other episodes. But I want you just to put that little brain worm in the back of your head and remember that. Open up a little chest in the back of your head, pull out the drawer, write on a piece of paper, politicians, the media, and lawyers, put in there, close it up, and push the drawer back in and lock it up. We're going to access that more and more as things go on for the remainder of the summer and the remainder of the year. So yesterday, Trump and RFK were both on stage together at a Trump rally. Now, who didn't see that happening? I'm not being negative, Nelly. I think this is a positive a change in what's happening in our political discourse. But I think most people understood that was going to happen. Maybe subconsciously, people kind of expected it. I knew this was going to happen. And, when RFK was asked, would he be, you remember there was chatter a while back about him being a VP candidate for Trump, and I said that's never going to happen. I talked about it on this stream, and I did drop a little Easter egg explaining what's going to happen and where we're going to be and where we are today. So, it's I don't think that's any surprise to anybody. But what's interesting is the timing. Do you think the timing was intentional? And again, this is not a negative. This is a great development. This is something that should give lots of people hope, no matter where you are on the political spectrum. And as we're all increasingly learning, we're all spread out across the political spectrum depending on the particular issue, that we're seeing more of a divide, as I talk about in Twitter Spaces frequently, between individualism and collectivism. So what do you think about the timing? Do you think the timing was intentional? It was brilliant. You know why? What did they do? You know what Trump and RFK just did? They completely hijacked all the momentum that the DNC tried to build this week, right? The joyful convention where everybody's screaming and yelling at each other, genocide outside the convention. They timed this masterfully. That as soon as the convention was over, it was the next day, the media stopped talking about the convention quite so much. The momentum was done, and the media was looking for something else to discuss. What do they have to discuss? Boom, RFK and Trump. And you noticed the fireworks going off behind the two of them. Have you ever seen fireworks behind Trump on stage? Given what happened recently, I wouldn't have expected pyrotechnics to be on stage. What were the fireworks about? Well, there's an interesting book written by Robert Cialdini called Persuasion. And that everybody is persuasion. That gets you into an emotional state of excitement. They just single-handedly destroyed any momentum that the DNC may have built up over the beginning of the week. And one of the things that they brought up was the JFK files. You saw Trump made that announcement. He's going to appoint a special commission to release all the assassination documents around, I guess, John F. Kennedy and RFK, and we'll be able to see everything. It's interesting that almost a month to the, oh no, it was a month to the day. Once you understand how this system works, it's a lot easier to function within it and understand not to get so upset and suffer such anxiety with what's going on in the world. But on July 23rd of this year, exactly 1 month before, I posted an article on my Substack, which has, I don't know, 70 some odd thousand people subscribed to it, and quite a lot of people in politics. And the title of my article and my thesis was, will Trump show us the gears of the machine? And the subtitle was The JFK Files, an opportunity for America to heal. Who couldn't see all of this converging together? Like, it's perfectly teed up and lined up. Hello, everybody on TikTok. I got a bunch of people on TikTok saying hello. I haven't used this account since I had my last burner phone, but hello, good morning, buenos días, todo bien contigo. So these are all things that are signs of hope and healing, as I put in that subtitle. That what is the American psyche longed for so much? It's truth about some of the worst periods of its history, and they know that there was some dodgy stuff going on behind the scenes. Well, now you have two people on stage that were lifelong Democrats on stage at the Republican Party coming together to try to heal us in a bunch of different ways. And they disagree on a whole bunch of policies, just like many of us disagree on a bunch of things. That's just the way life is. I disagree with a lot of things people in my family believe. Doesn't mean you don't love them, right? So I think all of this is just such a feeling of optimism that we're headed towards. And it's nice to see that there are people that have ascended to the top levels of politics who really understand what everybody has been longing for. I think this is an amazing opportunity for us. So, how did the legacy media headlines start today? What's the first thing they're going to do? You got Trump and RFK coming together on stage. What's the legacy media going to do? It's going to destroy the reputation of RFK, of course. Of course, it's the first thing they're going to do, right? And, they pretty much ignored him during all of this period. You saw a little bit of hit pieces. But this morning, what did they have ready in the can to fire at Trump and RFK? I don't usually like repeating smears, but it's so ridiculous that it's hysterical. The lead stories today that I guess are going through the news wires. If you don't know how news wires work, maybe we'll talk about that another time. It's part of the reason all your news is the same fake nonsense everywhere you turn. But apparently they're inferring that allegedly RFK was a coke dealer. They're just comical at this point. Oh, yes, this RFK, Pablo Escobar, right there. Yeah. Okay, thank you. It's from a dynastical family in politics, and he's gonna go be the Sinaloa cartel. Yeah. Okay, thank you. And what did I start this stream up with? Who are the least credible people in society? Politicians, the media, and lawyers. Oh, and PR agents. We'll start putting that into the mix. Well, who are writing these hit pieces for these corporate legacy media platforms? The fake news. Now people, I think, understand why I banned them from all Freedom Convoy press conferences, despite the fact that there were people tied to politics who some of them were lawyers, and some of them were alternative media that were trying to drag us into legacy media news conferences, of which there's no benefit. I explained this many times on this stream and many interviews. There was zero benefit for doing anything with the legacy media at that time. This is 2 years ago, right? So it's nice to see people are now understanding that as well. And you can see a lot of this in the aftermath of the Freedom Convoy now, that so much of the truth is coming out. So I've posted many times online on X, Twitter, what do you want to call it, that the truth about a political event doesn't come out for at least 1 to 5 years after that event. Well, we're 2.5 years into it and closing in on 3, 2.5 years into it. And so there's another 2.5 years until people understand, a lot of the dynamics and the truth of what went on there. So more on that later. We haven't talked about Trump in Nashville. So Trump was at Bitcoin Nashville this year. That was the speech, and both RFK and Trump were both there. Last year, was it last year or 2022? Maybe it was last year. Yeah, I spoke at 2022. 23, RFK gave a speech there explaining that it was the Canadian trucker convoy that made him understand why we need separation of money and state. We need freedom money, because he saw what Justin Trudeau did to us in Ottawa, and that inspired him to understand the need for Bitcoin. He doubled down on that in Nashville, gave a speech as well with some policy ideas that Bitcoiners got very excited for. Some Bitcoiners did. I think the most of them did. And Trump as well explained that they're going to take the 210,000 Bitcoin that are in the possession of the justice system, which, asterisks there, how did they get that Bitcoin is a problem. But it might be a problem, might not be. But it is what it is. It's in the government's possession, and they want to convert that Bitcoin, that 210,000 Bitcoin, which is worth approximately $14 billion today, something like that. And they want to convert that into a strategic Bitcoin reserve, and which is huge. This is absolutely huge, because when I was a candidate for the Conservative Party, I couldn't tell anybody I was into Bitcoin. That would have been automatic disqualification, because people don't understand tech. People don't understand fiscal policy. They don't understand a inflationary currency versus hard money. And, and there was that whole, the ethos around it, the fabrication that, Bitcoin is just used for criminal activity. So if anybody knew I was into Bitcoin, that would have just been an automatic disqualification right there. And now we're 9 years later, exactly 9 years at 11:11 in the morning, and the president of the United States the former president and candidate has announced a strategic reserve for Bitcoin. Wow, how quickly things change in the age of technology. And then after Trump gave his speech, Senator Cynthia Lummis, which I made this mistake on the radio. I couldn't guess the senator from Wyoming. I couldn't remember Wyoming for whatever reason. It happens. I was on with Mark Petroni talking about this on Saga 960 in Toronto. And Cynthia Lummis came out and put forward or presented a bill that I think is going through Congress, going through the House right now, of mandating or putting together a strategic reserve for Bitcoin. And their target is to take that 210,000 and expand it over time to 1 million Bitcoin as a strategic reserve. And that money is to be used for one purpose only, and that is to pay the debt. It's fascinating, because what they're trying to do, and it's over a long period of time. Now, we both know once Democrats get into power, whenever they get elected, they'll get in and they'll just squander all that money. Okay, fine. But if it held true and it was illegal to use that money for anything other than debt, the idea is they're trying to take the network effect and the upward momentum of the deflationary properties of Bitcoin, and they theorize, or their thesis is that in 20 years, that might be able to pay the national debt, or at least a big chunk of it. So just fascinating things. So we've gone from 9 years ago, I can't talk about Bitcoin because, oh, maybe it's criminal activity, and to we're going to have a strategic reserve and we're going to use it to pay off the debt. That's how powerful this protocol is. And by the way, a reminder for people new to Bitcoin, Bitcoin is not a coin. It's a protocol. It's a digital storage of value that is deflationary, meaning its purchasing power goes up over time. But for those who want to know more, I'm often in Bitcoin spaces with a bunch of people with Pubby, talk to Happy Hour, a whole bunch of them. And we talk about this on a fairly regular basis for newbies who want to learn about Bitcoin. But then there's this other property, Bitcoin, last thing. I've talked about it several times. And this book discusses this. By the way, Christmas gifts around the corner. Huh? There's 2 chapters in this book, The Trucker Convoy That Gave Us Hope, where I tell all the positive and beautiful stories of what happened to us in Ottawa. I get away from most of the political nonsense that's going on, try to focus on the positive things. But there are 2 chapters in here. It's about the convoy, but chapters 29 and 30. Chapter 29, this was Bitcoin's moment, and chapter 30, Bitcoin proves its power. And Bitcoin proved it in Ottawa during this event that, despite the desire of politicians and lobbyists, is the eternal brainworm that won't get out of people's minds. So you can go to honkingforfreedom.com to check it out. Jesse, we could add Hollywood stars to that list. Well, yeah, that's true. Hollywood stars tend to become mouthpieces for PR agencies, and and that's how they end up. Yeah, that's how you end up having Robert De Niro looking like a lunatic and just smearing politicians, in this case Trump, because they're hired guns. They're hired to do it. Remember, actors' jobs are to pretend to be somebody. Never forget that. Grok. I'm going to talk about an issue that I was dealing with this week. That's very frustrating. I asked Grok a question. So for those who don't know, Grok is the Twitter/X AI interface. It's their language model. And I'm going to be doing something with AI on this platform very soon. Some interesting stuff that I've been working on. But anyways, I asked Grok a question, and this is related to some of the nonsense that we've been watching online happen. You see with certain influencers. Remember I said they're hired guns? Everybody's a hired gun now, just about everybody. It's really frustrating. And this was around Candace Owens and who I've been on her show. And Dan Balzerin, I don't know the guy's name, but Dan something. And the 𝐇𝐎𝐿s, who have been rightfully arrested for child trafficking. By the way, I'll talk more about this in the future. But for those people who admire Andrew Tate, there's no place in the world where getting a girl to work for you in that business below the age of 18 is legal. And 21 minus 6 is 15. So we'll just leave it at that. Anyways, so, and of course, you know, who do they blame? Who's the scapegoat? Always when people get into trouble now. When modern influencers get into trouble online, who is their scapegoat? So I asked Grok this question. Grok, why do people think they are brilliant when they have discovered old recycled Jewish conspiracies that were used by the mid-century Germans? Okay, so I'll repeat that. Grok, why do people think they are brilliant when they have discovered old recycled Jewish conspiracies that were used by the mid-century Germans? I'm on YouTube. And by the way, shout out to Simply Bitcoin, was deplatformed from YouTube yesterday. Completely demonetized, not demonetized. channel was wiped out. That's happened to me before. And I've been going back and forth with this and with Nico and the guys, and we'll be doing something about it. More on that sometime soon. But if you're not watching Simply Bitcoin, go to Simply Bitcoin on Rumble and give them a shout out and give them a follow, because Nico just is a young father. This kid is less than a year old. This is not the time for an entrepreneur to have YouTube completely deplatform them. Anyways, so back to Grok. So Grok, I'm asking Grok about, why people, not specifically about the conspiracies. I'm not interested in that. It's the human behavioral aspect of it. Why do people think that they're brilliant having found this nonsense? So Grok responded this way. The phenomenon where individuals feel a sense of brilliance or discovery upon encountering old recycled conspiracy theories, particularly those with anti-Semitic roots from mid-century Germany, can be explained through several psychological lenses, which is what we talk about a little bit in here when we talk about confirmation bias and, how people are emotionally tied to different ideas. We've talked about this stuff before on this platform. So, number one, confirmation bias, which everybody seems to be addicted to and gets massive dopamine hits. It says confirmation bias. They tend to seek out, interpret, or recall information in a way that confirms their pre-existing beliefs. This is, by the way, what the political establishment uses on people regularly on all sides, by the way. When someone finds a conspiracy theory, even if old, it might align with their worldview, making them feel validated or enlightened. Okay, so they're insecure. And there's a lot of insecurity and depression right now in the world, and they don't feel terribly bright. So let me just search the internet and find something. And this is something important to understand. When people say, Scott Adams talks about this a lot, when people say, I'm going to do their own research. If you're going on to Google and researching and you're not using the word debunk, then you're not researching. Google is a confirmation bias machine. Whatever you input into Google, it's going to find something that's going to support your presuppositions in your search. That's why you need to type something, like if it's something like this, who controls, I don't know, whatever. And then you say, who controls whatever, debunk. And then look at both. Look at the arguments on both sides. And often you'll come up with, okay, so now I don't know. I don't know either way. I can be persuaded in both ways. That's okay. There are things that are unknowable in this world. But we've become so binary that we don't live in the gray area anymore, which is where most of life happens. Everybody's got to have certainty on either side, yes or no. But anyways, so confirmation bias is one. Number two, proportional bias. This leads individuals to believe that significant events must have equal significant causes or explanations. Conspiracy theories often provide a grandiose narrative that seems to match the scale of the event in question, making believers feel they've uncovered something profound. Yes. So, oh my God, 9/11, how the hell did that happen? Oh, it must be. It must be a global conglomerate of secret, shadowy figures and people on the inside. It must have been an inside job. The whole government must have been behind it. No. If you understand the Middle East and what's happening in the Middle East and some of the philosophical underpinnings of people we disagree with in the West, it makes perfect sense. Oh no, how is it possible they did all of that? It's very possible. It's called incompetence. If you've ever tried to get your driver's license renewed, you see incompetence everywhere in the government and in politics. So that's all right. Number three. This one I found there's 8 of these, but this one I found most interesting. All right. Again, we're going to asking Grok why people think they're brilliant when they've discovered, debunked, and old recycled conspiracy theories that are laughable. I mean, I'm paraphrasing right now from the question I asked, but that's the general theme. Number 3, this is fascinating. A need for uniqueness and identity. Believing in a conspiracy theory, especially one that is not widely accepted, can give individuals a sense of being part of an elite group with access to, quote, hidden truths. An elite group, okay? Park that. They can fulfill a psychological need to feel special or unique. So isn't it interesting? You often hear people, this is why I don't like to hear the phrase, the global elite. I think of them as the global scavengers. They're just a bunch of bureaucrats running a bunch of organizations, laundering money through NGOs. They're not elite. They're con artists is what they are. But it's interesting, the use of the word elite. So believing in a conspiracy theory, especially one that's not widely accepted, can give individuals a sense of being part of an elite group. Remember I said from one of the previous ones that it's signs of significant insecurity? And it's this one here, number 1. It was the very first one. When someone finds a conspiracy theory, even if it's old, it might align with their worldview, making them feel validated. So looking for validation and looking to seek to be part of an elite group. This is why insecurity and depression are very important, right? I've had many people ask me, how am I so secure? I don't know. If I don't believe in myself, who else is going to believe in me, right? Like, just, I don't understand the framing of insecurity. We all make mistakes. Me too. Everybody's going to make mistakes. So what? That doesn't mean you don't give it your best, and you push forward and you try to be, like, I think it comes from when you do your best to always be a straight shooter with people, always, whether they like it or not, and most people don't like it, to be entirely honest, in certain scenarios. But the reason I do that is because I know my subconscious is always watching. There's always 2 people in the room. There's me and my subconscious. And the subconscious can't interpret things so intricately. So if you're dishonest and your subconscious sees that you're dishonest, you're going to be insecure because you're now incongruent with who you are. Whereas if you're straight and you're honest with people, your subconscious will see that, yeah, you don't have anything to hide. You're always shooting it straight. Then that's going to breed natural security in you, right? At least that's how I work on it. Look at it. And what's that leading to? A bunch of liars need validation. They need to feel that they're part of a special elite group because they feel, I don't know, insecure, ostracized. I don't know. But I just shoot straight with people, man. Then anyways. Okay, number 4. On the reasons why people recycle old, debunked nonsense conspiracies. Social identity and group affiliation, collectivism, right? And remember I discussed before, we're not in a period of left and right anymore. We're in a period where the divide is between individualism and collectivism. So social identity and group affiliation, conspiracy theories can serve as a form of social glue, binding individuals into communities where these beliefs are shared. This can fulfill a desire for community and identity. There's that identity again, where members feel superior due to their supposed knowledge. Now, it's important to understand that so many of these debunked conspiracy theories, they're coming out of the Middle East. I mean, there's many articles in Al-Aram about this. If you know anybody who's watched Al Jazeera Arabic, it's all Jewish conspiracy theories, but they pivoted about 12 years ago to white supremacy. So you turn on Al Jazeera Arabic, all you hear is white supremacy propaganda. That's been going on for 12, 15 years, something like that, right? Group identity, the insecurity of the Ummah, or members of it, the more extreme factions, and this insecurity breeds a need for identity. All right, next one. I hate this word, but number 5, misinformation and echo chambers. just call it propaganda and echo chambers. The internet, especially, platform platforms like X. This is from Grok, by the way. The internet, especially platforms like X, can create echo chambers where misinformation, let's just say propaganda, thrives. People might stumble upon these theories in spaces where they're presented as new or insightful, unaware of the historical context or debunking. So it's funny that Grok is, I don't think Grok is blaming X, but it's saying that X, and I'm suggesting other social media platforms, can create echo chambers where people just, it fuels itself. And you see that you'll have like a space and it'll be talking about whatever topic and it'll be a regular space. And over time, it gets smaller and smaller and smaller. Why? Because it gets more and more fringe as time goes on. And then everybody's trying to out-fringe each other. And the next thing you know, it's, mid-century German salutes. I don't think that's a comment on social media or Twitter X, so much as it is, that's just human beings. That's a flaw in our operating system. And whether they use Twitter/X or Facebook to do it, that's just, This is why it's important that we talk about on this stream. So it's important to understand human behavior, right? So we understand what's fueling all this sort of stuff. And by the way, all of this stuff I knew during the Freedom Convoy, which is why I strategically messaged a certain way that I did. All right, number 6, historical ignorance and selective memory. I would put that in, tangentially related to confirmation bias. Many might not be aware that these theories have been debunked or are recycled from historical anti-Semitic propaganda. And it's not just anti-Semitic propaganda, it's all sorts of propaganda. Like I mentioned, the white supremacy propaganda that's been coming out of Qatar through Al Jazeera for the past 12 to 15 years. The lack of widespread education on specifics of historical conspiracy theories allows them to be repackaged and presented as new insight. So yeah, it's just snake oil salesman taking something that everybody knows is a lie, repackaging and put it on different covers. Like, oh, look what we discovered now. This is also, by the way, when people, I get a little bit uneasy when people say, oh, I get the memes. They're funny. 5 years ago, I was a conspiracy theorist and now I'm just a theorist and stuff like that. Like, you see that with Alex Jones. Alex Jones all the time, talk about the biases that are used there. I think everything he said just about has been wrong, maybe 98%, but he gets one or two things right that we all can see. He's not the only one who gets it right. And he brands it as Alex Jones, the Oracle. No. Remember I talked about hired guns? Hired guns. Number 7, emotional intelligence and critical thinking. Something none of us do because we're all emotional thinkers. Research suggests a negative correlation between emotional intelligence and belief in conspiracy theories. Those with a lower emotional intelligence might be more susceptible to these narratives due to less critical engagement with information. I think the best way to just describe that is the ability to say, hey, maybe I'm wrong on this. Let me debunk. When I was a kid, I was a pretty rambunctious kid, and my parents sent me to a child at that time a psychiatrist. Before psychiatry was just about pumping drugs all day long, and it was this is during my developmental years, and I didn't realize the benefit at the time. I don't think my folks even understood the benefit at the time. But when you're going through your developmental years and you have a psychologist, psychiatrist sitting down with you and asking you about what happened this week, did you get angry? Did you have a temper tantrum? Did somebody make you angry? Whatever. And you're doing an analysis of your behavior, and he's asking you as a little kid, why did you respond that way? Could you have responded differently? Maybe next time you respond this way. It kind of helps you develop a sense of observing ego, where you can step out of yourself from a third person. I try to do this a lot and just kind of give the 50,000-foot view of myself, everything that's going on in that scenario. I can't tell you how many times I did that a day in Ottawa during the Freedom Convoy, and I saw all of these people, many people chasing fame, chasing money, chasing notoriety. There was a couple of conversations I had with people where I tried to explain to them something that I learned at a young age, which is if you don't, I don't remember where I learned this. I think I was reading in an article somewhere. But anyways, if you don't have before you achieve fame or wealth or recognition on a large scale, if you don't have your demons sorted, then fame or wealth are going to amplify the absolute worst aspects of your personality. You've heard other people say this before. People who've been through this. They got very rich, they got very famous, and then they just turned into arrogant degenerates that treated people like absolute garbage. And I saw a lot of people in, I guess they're all political people, so there's no surprise. That's how political people behave. But trying to get them to just dial down, the reason we're in Ottawa is for mandates and to bring the country together and to celebrate freedom and to lower everybody's anxiety and to get out of this without anybody getting hurt. And, that's it, and that's why I said many times, the government's not our enemy. The government's just a system, and the system is not functioning right now. But it's amazing that, I had a couple of conversations with people like that, and it's like they never heard that before. And they also don't understand any sort of fame or notoriety is not a positive. It's usually quite negative. And I also learned that from somebody I knew who was quite famous many years ago. All right, number 8 of 8. The why you're seeing all these recycled, nonsensical, debunked conspiracy theory hoaxes, or these hoaxes that you hear, right? It's the thrill, and this is so true. The thrill of discovery. There's an inherent thrill in solving mysteries, uncovered secrets. Conspiracy theories, particularly these types, often play into this by offering complex puzzles or narratives that require decoding, which can be intellectually stimulating or emotionally satisfying, that's interesting because often they start with a framing of insecurity and uneasiness and anxiety. So people want a simple answer to the world. Remember the binary thing. It's either A or B. The world is very complex. Governments are very complex. Everything is complex. And there's incompetence all over the place. But if they accept the incompetence, then they have to accept the, not the insecurity, they have to accept some of the instability in the world, and that there are things that are just unknown, and they can't process that. So they go from wanting just a simple answer. Okay, just get rid of those people and all my problems are solved. And then they enter a path where they're looking at, the meme of the guy with pieces of paper on the wall. There's 1,000 different lines connecting each other. And it's just crazy making. That Whitney Webb is like that, right? She, I know some people who had worked with her and were sounding the alarm, this is not real. Thought she was good. And then, imagine that, all right, there's something going on there, right? So yeah, they start with, they want a simple answer to something, and then all of a sudden, oh my God, look at all these intricate things and how they're all connected. And I'm the one, I've discovered it. And let me go out to the world and share it with everybody, right? So anyways, I think, and then it concludes by saying, for posts on X, this is Grok speaking, the LLM on Twitter X. From posts on X, there's a sentiment that these theories are often repackaged without context, loading new generations to think that they've stumbled upon something groundbreaking, which is why you see this happening every couple of generations, right? The cycle of rediscovery is partly due to the lack of comprehensive education on historical tropes and the nature of conspiracy theories themselves. And that, listen, that doesn't mean there aren't people, nefarious people who sometimes, you see that sometimes little cliques in corporations and, the sales guys trying to get to the executive VP position and he's forming a slate. It happens in politics for riding associations and district associations where, we're going to build a slate and we're going to take over. Like, yeah, that sort of stuff happens too, but it doesn't happen for a population of 8 billion people. I'm sorry. There's too many competing interests from people who are, people are pretty easy to understand when you understand one thing. People are selfish. That's it. We're just selfish, all of us. And we want the best for ourselves. And sometimes, we often say we want the best for ourselves and the best for our families. But that's the motivation that fuels this. If you think there's something beyond that, then it's just a misunderstanding of how things works. And then it finally says, in essence, the feeling of brilliance upon discovering these theories often stems from a mix of cognitive biases, which we discuss, the need for social identity, and the lack of critical historical knowledge, all amplified by modern information ecosystems where propaganda, it says misinformation, but propaganda can be easily spread. So, and then also you have kind of the nefarious intent of people. So with, for example, Andrew Tate, when he was into trouble, when they started this investigation, which was 2 years ago now, I think, it was 2 years ago, 18 months ago that he was arrested. And it's a very interesting story, what led to his original arrest. It was, who was I here? Oh, it was AP, Apostate Prophet, was talking about this yesterday or a few days ago, but I finally caught it. And they're explaining the origin of Andrew Tate's arrest. Do you know the origin of Andrew Tate's arrest? The police it was the counterterrorism division of the police in Romania. We have that here everywhere. Every police association has that, or most places in the Western world or modern world have that. And they got a tip that some girl was abducted and being held against her will by some American. And so they went and raided the house the first time, and they realized, okay, there's no one abducted here. There's nobody in a cage that's been kidnapped and whatever. But they looked around the house and they thought, but this could be, it had the signs and the tells of exploitation of women in some way, shape, or form, and that there was potential human trafficking going on. But there was nothing that they could go on. So other than they can take notes, see what happens, and then, put them up on the board and start investigating. Who are these two clowns that are here that have the indicators and warnings of what might be sex trafficking? And, they ran an investigation for quite a long period of time and gathered intel. And I'm sure they did stakeouts and followed them and did surveillance and realized very quickly that, oh, yes, there is something to the story. So they arrested him the first time, clearly to gather more intelligence, to get access to the house, to get access to the records, and I guess get access to his products that he was selling, where he outed himself and explained that he would, have sex with and pick up girls that were underage, and he would employ them in the sex industry well below the age of 18, which is not legal in any country in the world. Even the Netherlands, even Amsterdam, that's not legal. And they clearly had enough to go in for a secondary arrest. And this is where you're seeing all the information coming out. So the first time he got into trouble, he said, he started to go all pissy mouth and started, it's because I'm defending men and because I'm the only one who speaks up for young men. Okay, well, he's a pimp speaking up for men. Okay, fine. But now this time it's the Zionists. So it's always somebody else. It's never the fact that, hey, maybe they were trafficking young girls. And when they were going to try to pick up girls from school who were 14 and groom them for this, that's not the problem. Oh, no, it's the Zionists, or it's because he was defending men. This is textbook con artist, but he does know the tools of persuasion very well. He's clearly read Cialdini's work and works like that, and that's what he's been using to try to brainwash his audience. And they're so sufficiently brainwashed, some of them, that they gave him a significant amount of money, which is how you know somebody's brainwashed. Once they start giving money and they turn off the critical faculties or critical thinking, like in this list of conspiracies, they turn it off. It just shuts it off. You can show, once somebody is sufficiently brainwashed, you can show them all the evidence right in front of their faces. Look, it was peaceful. Everybody loved each other. Look, see the hug. We all got together. This was for everybody's benefit. There was nothing negative or in any way adversarial towards people. You can show them the direct evidence right in front of their face, and they won't be able to process it. They'll slip into the 7 signs of cognitive dissonance. Special thanks to Scott for laying that out, and we'll talk about that more next time. So all of this is to say, it's good to be back. I am going to do my best to be back more frequently, and I'm trying to get out some shorter videos on many of the platforms. Things are heating up, not just around politics in the United States, but in Canada as well. We'll discuss more of that stuff too. I'm going to be working on a Substack to release in the next day or so. I have to do an interview with somebody shortly. So bjdichter.substack.com. You can follow me on Twitter, although that's becoming increasingly an echo chamber. There's also Getter, and I don't know how much longer I'm going to keep Facebook. Got to find another platform that's not so echo chambery, and I don't think that's Threads either. Oh, or on Instagram. I guess you can throw me on there too, although that's more personal stuff, but whatever. I'm getting the same questions all over the place. But I think I see what's happened in the past couple of days, and also with RFK and Trump. Much of that was planned, and I'm glad it was planned. You know why? Because people in government would have nowhere near the competence to pull off what they just pulled off, which is to bring people from across the political spectrum together around the ethos of freedom, which is what we were trying to do in Ottawa, which is what I was trying to do with our messaging around peace, love, unity, and freedom. And I do know that we all have common contacts, acquaintances, and some friends. And I'm confident to see that that idea of shutting out the legacy media and the fake news media and focusing on positivity and bringing people together around hope, despite some differences in policy ideas, that's the future we're leading towards. And I think we're going to see more of that in stuff related to other platforms that I'm involved in. So, and the other thing is Open College with Professor Stephen Hicks. Check it out. That's Stephen's work. I've built the platform and do a lot of the editing and work with my team on it, as well as Not on Record tomorrow, Joseph Newberger and Diana Davidson. I don't know if I'll be able to do a stream tomorrow, but I'm going to consider it. And tomorrow night, 8 o'clock, there will be another installment of Not on Record. Okay? So I love you all. I hope that was helpful. And remember, the 3 least credible people in the world are the media, politicians, and lawyers. And you can take that lack of credibility, multiply it times many exponent, a very large exponent, when the person is all 3. But don't let it get you down, because I think we're heading in to some of the most positive experiences in the modern age, despite the bumps in the road. And one of the most significant bumps in the road is what's happening in England. But I think what the British people have done by electing Mein Starmer is they have pulled the curtain away that has been hiding all of this authoritarianism, and the average person now sees what's going on. So that's a good thing. It's good because you can't fix a problem that you don't know is there. Okay, so I love you all. I got to run. It's getting late, and I will talk to you all very, very